When brainstorming, it is good to start with the end in mind. What is the real goal of your speech? This will, of course, depend on the type of presentation you will be giving. Each type has a specific purpose. For example, in a conference presentation, your goal would be to present your research agenda and/or findings. For oral qualifying exams, your goal may be to show your competence on a specific subject. The important part is to really understand what the non-content goals are before you move on to the content-related goals. This will guide the design of your presentation. Each type of presentation will require different elements to achieve your goal. For example, when presenting research findings, you need to establish the context, clearly describe your research question, and speak about your methods, findings, and conclusion or implications. In contrast, some presentations, such as a job talk, require that you show other things, like evidence of your teaching ability, and any personal abilities that show that your skill set is desirable for a specific job. While it is important to include the elements appropriate for the type of presentation you will give, it is even more important to include detail in the appropriate places. For example, you may need to detail problems or issues in the topic, or findings of previous studies to serve as a backdrop for your presentation. You should provide conceptual and operational definitions of important ideas, and use these details to frame your research question. Detail your research design, participants, and measurement framework and research methods. Finally, findings usually consist of a summary of results combined with your analysis, and finally, detail the implications. In cases of job talks, you also need to mention concrete examples of your competence in communication and evidence of your ability to work in a team. And most importantly, you give detailed and compelling examples of how your competence are useful. To make your presentation move smoothly from one section to the next, use transitions to bridge the gap between one section and the next. For example, when presenting research findings, use appropriate transitions to build bridges between backgrounds and research questions, or between the literature and knowledge gaps in the field. Between research questions and methods, mention methods used in previous studies that dealt with similar research questions. Finally, the transition from the reporting of methods and findings could be filled with the description of the kind of data that could be retrieved from the method. In cases of job talks, between presentation of your competencies and evidences for your competencies, you can talk about things that prove your competencies. The transition from the evidence for your competencies and how the competencies are useful for the position you are applying for, you can talk about the similarity between the settings where you use the skills and where you would work if you get the position.